Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Judith Briles, and we're back for another awesome episode of the AuthorU, Your Guide to Book Publishing podcast. And I always like to lead with a quote. I've used this so many times, but it's so appropriate. And I guess it's kind of ringing the bells for me right now because I'm at the 90% mark on my next book, finishing my next book. That's why my wrist is killing me. And that it's appetizers with Judas, but it is simply this a phrase I've used so many times is when you're on goal, when you've got things to do, you have to start shutting down other stuff. You have to become myopically focused. So that I'm going to give you two quotes that come from my Snappy, Sassy, Salty book. And it's simply this: don't do well what you have no business doing. All these people who come in and want you to do stuff, if you're on goal to do something like I am at the 10% to go, in the next 7 days, I want this book done, at least the content, so then I can turn it over to the editing process. That I have to say, and the other one is, if you never say no, your yeses are worthless. I have to close in on things that I can't let the outside noise come in at me. And I'm going to just advise it for all of you. If whatever you're doing is that you've got to really have blinders on at times if you want to get it done. Writing, book, marketing, going away, whatever it is, you have to let the outside noise not come in and waylay you. All right. With that said, we're going to talk about today some of the things that can waylay you, and and that things that can rejuvenate you. With me is Casey Demchak. It's been a while since Casey's been with us. He is an awesome, amazing copywriter expert, and does wonderful courses and workshops just on getting your words to sing, whether it's in the title, the headline, in your interior copy, thinking about marketing. So he is an award-winning copywriter himself. He has written lots of stuff, compelling marketing materials for many authors that I know personally and who have achieved Amazon bestseller status because of the magic of the words that he uses. So Casey's best known for his innovative approach to creating what he calls the core message platform. And Casey, I really want us to get into the core message platform if we can, to go on that. He's also an author himself, Essential Sales of Writing Secrets. So with that, let's jump ahead, but I want to give you his website so you can refer back that. It's the old www. Casey, Casey, and then D as in David, EMCHAK.com. Casey, welcome back to the show. It's been too long.
Yes, it has, Judith. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was thinking about copywriting. It's always about copywriting. It's always about that. I always think of it as fishing. And I watched a movie, the Robert Redford movie, The River Runs Through It, not too long ago. And I lived in Montana for years, and I can tell you the hint to getting great trout is yellow miniature marshmallows. But with that said, that we did fishing and the fly fishing, and you throwing, getting that fly out there. And then in marketing with the copy and the words, it's that sometimes gentle reel as you lure them in. When I think of that, I always think of you, Casey.
Well, thanks. I never had a good fishing analogy for copywriting, but now I do. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Reel them in.
Real. Oh yeah, it's like fishing. You got to throw it out and you got to reel them in, and then you go hook them.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it starts with a hook too. You got to hook them and then reel them in. Yeah. Gently.
All right. So where do we start on this? How do you know what? I need to ask you, how did you get into this? Well, what reeled you in to the magic of words in the hook?
Well, I started writing a lot when I was a little kid, like most writers, and I
Yeah.
started writing short stories, and then I got into screenplays, and I went to film school, and I went to Loyola Marymount. I won their top screenwriting award 2 years in a row, and I was doing
Whoa,
a
whoa, whoa.
story analyst internship for Ron Howard and Anson Williams. and I read scripts for them all the time. And I was trying to get going as a screenwriter. I got an agent who got fired during the big writer strike in 87, got another
Hmm.
agent who got fired. And back then, this was pre-internet. So all we heard was if you don't make it by 30, you got to get a responsible job. And there was all, your family. So you got to start getting a real job. Um, so at 30, I decided, well, I haven't got my big break and, I'm getting older, which now I laugh about because now I'm getting older. Back then I wasn't. But I went down to my mail. I go, what do I do? I've got these writing skills. And I went down to my mailbox. And this is back when we got a lot of direct mail in our mailboxes every night. And I opened my mailbox, pulled out some junk mail, the direct mail sales letters. And a little bell went off in my head, and I thought, well, they got to pay somebody to write this. And I was living in Manhattan Beach at the time, California, and I drove down to
My
Marina.
old stomping grounds, by the way.
Yeah, and then I drove into Marina Del Rey the next day and went to a Barnes and Nobles, and there was about 7 or 8 books on copywriting, about 5 of which were written by Bob Bly, who I now know through AWAI. And long story short, I was hired by a healthcare. I put together a portfolio, was hired by a healthcare company in Newport Beach. Then I worked there for 3 years and then took a job as the senior copywriter at a medical device company in Santa Barbara and worked there for 5 years. And around 2000, I think it was the year 2000, I went independent. And for probably the first 11 or 12 years, I just wrote strictly medical marketing. So I've actually had a
Ah.
17-year career writing medical marketing. And then so I had like some lead magnets that were aimed at medical, people could download from my website. And the guy who did the layouts for my lead magnets was Nick Zellinger.
Our
And
buddy.
our buddy. And so Nick said, Casey, you should help authors write their marketing copy. They can't write their marketing copy. I go, well, they write their book, can't they write their? He goes, no. So then I ended up at an AuthorU event as one of the vendors. I think it was like 2012,
When I did it, the extravaganzas.
the extravaganza, and I set up a table and I met Penny Sansevieri, Amber Vilhauer, got to know you, Judy O'Byrne and Hasmark, quite a lot of people. And through that, I started writing, helping authors and speakers and coaches. Did that for quite a while. And then I worked for Jeff Walker for a few years. And now I'm back here. Yeah. So it's been a
Well,
long
there
and
you,
winding road, 33 years.
it there is. And you mentioned Manhattan Beach. I grew up in Hermosa Beach,
Yeah. Right by
next
there.
door, you know,
Yeah.
and it was in Hermosa Beach as an 8 year old. I started honing my sales skills.
Also renting boogie boards or surfboards.
No, hauling a little red wagon, watching people drinking their soda pops, and it was not cans. We didn't have their bottles. And watching them, and then I would, as this little 8 year old, I would approach them and said, "Would you like me to take your soda bottle for you? So, and get rid of it." I would fill my little wagon up. I would haul it over to the green store, and I would get 2 cents a bottle.
And that must have been awesome because back then,
I know.
Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach was just it, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah,
How do you
yeah.
leave?
I, I lived right on the Strand. I
Yeah.
mean, I just up and down. That's how I got all my movie money. It's what I did.
Yeah, I could have spent I used to go boogie boarding all the time in my 20s in Manhattan
Yeah.
Beach and I go into like what were they? Baxter's, Hennessy's, Manhattan Coolers, all the little beach bars at night and I
Well, I
could
wasn't doing that as an 8 year old, but I,
I
I
was
did, I did do boogie boarding. I was killer in the water.
I met a guy in a bar one night in Manhattan Beach as about 25. I'll be real quick with this, but he had been he had a little shack he lived in small little house, which was
Yeah.
probably worth a ton of money. But he was an older guy, and all he did his whole life was, well, he had like a boogie board surf shack, and he just rented out boogie boards and surfboards and hung out on the beach his whole life. And he was like one of the most happiest people I ever met.
Yeah. Yeah. No stress.
No stress, and he was probably in
No
his
stress.
50s at the time. This was back in the
Hmm.
80s. He's probably passed on, but he was just he just hung out at the beach, and then he'd sip a couple drinks in the beach bars at night and put out wisdom, you know. He
All
was like
right.
the beach guru dude, old gray-haired guy with the beach
I,
shirts.
I guess those were the good old days, hey?
Yeah,
All that, but we have common links there, and I am a beach rat. I am a beach rat. And when I'm going into to timeout space, that's where I go. I am attracted to the ocean, the water. I mean, that's me, totally. All right, so listen, so that's the mental things, and we're going to talk about mental things today, and mental triggers and things that you can do for your success. I mean, there's all kinds of what
yeah,
Casey talks about, the psychological levers that you can tap into emotional ideas, even in your scenarios. There's things that you can do in your writing. And I also, Casey, if we could do some kissing on some of the, maybe there's some trips and ticks here that we can do. Of what happens when the garbage drops in? We all have garbage drop in that we can trigger and go into other areas. And I don't know if this is the time we talk about the core message platform or we do that because we're going to do another show with Casey
yeah.
on other topics if that's more appropriate to go into that when we talk about writing enticing marquee copy. But maybe it fits both. So
It
you
does.
tell me, you tell
Yeah,
me, do we kind of sandwich this in right now?
yeah. I think we could do. I could talk a little bit about the core message platform, and then that could lead into mental triggers. Some of the mental triggers.
Love it. Okay. All right.
So a core message platform is a document. Think of a document that's say 15 to 20 pages long, and
Hmm.
it is the central kind of master message document for your book or your online program. It's where you want to write a series of marketing messages about your book, value-driven, transformation-driven marketing messages, messages that overcome potential objections. You want to have a message that is kind of your unique selling proposition statement, your tentpole benefit. Then you want to have a series of messages that are maybe more secondary messages. And for programs, I'll write a 15 to 20 minute, 20 page document. And then we
Hmm.
take messages out of the message platform to create your website pages, sales pages, e-blast.
Hmm.
For a lot of
Hmm.
authors, what I do for their what I've done for their books is their message platform will contain a section for their back cover copy, Amazon description, maybe video, narration, postcard copy, other copy. But the idea is you want to have an excess of strong messaging. You don't want to write when you do your marketing messaging, you don't want to just write enough. Like with web pages, I've designed the web page, I've got this empty box here, I have to fill it with copy. You always want to have an excess amount of copy. And what that does a couple things for you. It gives you plenty of good copy to choose from, much like a filmmaker. I mentioned earlier I was an intern for Ron
Hmm.
Howard and Anson Williams. I worked for them when Ron Howard did Cocoon, and I was
I remember that.
really good movie. And so I got to go one of the private screenings of Cocoon, and afterwards I was like 22 years old. I found myself standing next to Ron Howard. I was kind of nervous, and I said all I could think to say was, "How did you know when you had a good movie on your hands?" And he said, "When I knew I had a good movie when I was leaving a lot of good stuff on the cutting room floor." Which means
Oh.
he was working from just an excess of good information, good stuff. So he had a lot of good stuff to choose from. He could leave some good stuff out. So
Mhm.
you want to create a core message platform so that you have a lot of good information to choose from. And the other good thing about when you work from a message platform, you don't, a lot of times when you're doing a marketing campaign, you spend marketing materials out over a period of time. If you don't have a message platform, you may make up your messaging as you go, and over a period of time, it may morph and wobble around. But you don't want that. You want your messaging to be very persistent and consistent across all your marketing channels. So by drawing from a message platform, all your marketing is going to be very consistent in voice and tone and style. And let's say another good thing is, let's say, and this happens to authors a lot, where you get an
Mhm.
email and hey, there's a slot in our magazine. You can do a little advertorial about your book, but we need it in 48 hours. We need your copy. Panic, but not if you have a message platform. You just go to your message platform. You can easily pull stuff out of there to create an article. Let's say they're giving you
Mhm.
500 words or 600 words. So you can do that very rapidly. You can take advantage of kind of on the spot marketing opportunities when you have a message platform, and you can pull copy out of it, knowing it's going to be very consistent with all the other marketing materials you've made for your book or program. So that is the advantage of having a core message platform for your book. You always want to create that central master messaging document.
So this is like this master game plan that would go around all the voice, the marketing, um, even your vision within here. How long would an author take, or should they allocate to create this baby?
Well, I think I just got done ghostwriting a book and I included the message platform as part of the project. And I worked on it while I was writing the book.
Hmm.
If you're writing a book, get to work on the message platform for it because then that does a couple of things. It gives you time to do a lot of revisions. And also, when you have those days where you're writing your book and you hit that wall or that day where, God, I'm just not feeling it with the book, I'll work on my message platform for a little bit. So, um, I've done them for authors. I typically, if they complete their book and then I write the message platform, usually it takes a few weeks,
Hmm.
3 to 4 weeks tops, sometimes sooner. It depends on the scope and size of the platform. I've worked with some authors, they'll say, give me a sales page, back cover copy, Amazon description. It's not that many items. So, you can do that faster. So the more robust you make your platform, the longer it's going to take. But, and I always start by writing a sales page first,
Hmm.
because that tends to be your longest piece.
Hmm.
And from that, you can typically spin out back cover copy. And of course, if you have a sales page and then your back cover copy, spinning out an Amazon description isn't going to take long
E-
because it's very simple.
Easy peasy. I mean,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I would say, start with your sales page for your book or program.
Hmm.
And the other question I get on, let's say, a sales page, especially these days, with back cover copy, you're limited with how much copy you can have because back cover's only so much space.
Hmm.
Um, People say, well, okay, if you make a sales page, these days nobody reads anymore. It has to be super short. And
Oh, I know.
what I always tell people a couple things. When I did my very first copywriting assignment in 1993, I still remember being in the meeting. They're telling me, Casey, keep your copy really short. Nobody reads anymore. And the internet, we didn't have the internet yet. We were FedExing things overnight. And so since then, you know, billions and billions of dollars of stuff have been sold with sales copy. People still read. And so like when I worked over for Jeff, our little saying on the copy team was, we can't be too long, we can only be too boring. You know. So every sentence has to set up the next sentence, and you can't be too long, you can only be too boring. So we've all watched 10-minute videos that went by like that. And we've watched 5-minute videos that seemed like they were 15 minutes long. So we've read sales pages that were 1,000 words that boom, you just stayed engaged with it the whole time. You can read a 500-word sales page that never really gets to the point, you know. So don't get too caught up on length. Just focus on the quality
Hmm.
um, of your message and give people the information they need to make an informed buying decision. So,
I do have something I want to interject on the sales page. You have seen, I think most of our viewers and listeners have seen sales pages that almost go on in perpetuity, and they piss me off. It pisses me off. I said I am interested. So I trying to get down to where do I get the details? Where do I get the information? I don't need to hear a gazillion testimonials. I don't need, I want to know what the key elements are. But I make decisions really quick. So, and maybe everyone doesn't work that way, but I find that you will be clicked if it's see that would go along with you can't be boring. You can't be too long. I think you can be way too long.
If
Um,
well, if you go really long, but it's also has to do with a mistake a lot of people make is,
mhm.
it's like tell, another little rule is tell them what you need to tell them and then stop. So a mistake some people make,
Thank you.
yeah, a mistake a lot of people make is they'll think, okay, this isn't too boring, but they'll make a point and they think they need to reiterate and reiterate. They kind of underestimate the intelligence of the reader. You could tell the reader what they need, if you have a critical benefit you want to tell them about, just tell it to them once, keep it simple, you're done, move on. If you want to reiterate something, a PS line or something like that at the end, but mistakes I see is too much reiterating one point too many times, because then
Hmm.
you hit that boring part.
Hmm.
It is too
hmm
long because you become boring. You're repeating yourself.
hmm
So hit your points, but know that your reader's kind of smart and you don't need to tell them the same thing multiple times. And brevity
I,
is always king. If you can give them a complete message and be succinct, that's what you want to do.
I think I want you to assume they're smart.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I would just don't. I know. I keep saying. Someone said, "Oh my God, they're at the fourth grade reading level." I'm going. I'm gonna keep it at. I think I'm gonna still go with sixth grade.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna totally dumb it down. So.
And that's why, good writing, and as you know, every writer, anybody who writes a book knows, good writing is rewriting, great writing is rewriting some more, and
Mm,
that's one thing a lot of people don't get about copywriting is effective copywriting. The copywriter spends a lot of time. I mean, you pour through it and you do a lot of drafts. I think that with AI these days, some of that gets lost. It's like, you still want to discern discernment's a big deal. And you want to still use some old school copywriting techniques and like, okay, does this sentence, you know, you got to earn the next sentence. Like, okay, have I earned the right to keep telling them more, or have I dropped the ball, or have I repeated myself? So, yeah.
hmm Everyone who I know, I mean, Casey, I'm on book number 49 now. That actually 49 and 50, both of them are juggling right now. That the kind of writing I did at book one, book two, book 10 is so different from what I do today. There's still a punchy to it, but it goes back to the more you write, the better you get. And the faster you get, and then you can write even more, that kind of thing. But it's really coming back to it again. And by the way, I love it that you just mentioned the PS line. I think the PS line is actually very effective
Oh, yeah.
to to do it after you sign off something. I'll give them a PS. Well, one more thing, or maybe that really wasn't included in up here, but you added in, and maybe comes in and does the close for you. Maybe that is the second hook. You had it hooked him in the beginning. We'll go back to our fishing deal. But this is now the snag and bring him into the boat.
Well, and as a copywriter, I look at research and stuff like that. And there's always been a lot of research things in the past that I have read that say,
Mhm.
I got an email, the subject line and the PS line are the two biggest deals because that's what people look at. And they give these, and they've referred to eyeball tests. We've all seen those charts where like it's got the different colors where the person eyeballs go, and the PS line is something that people always look at. And they give kind of a little little scientific reason why people go to the PS line. And I say, forget science. It goes back to fourth grade when we used to pass notes, you know,
Oh,
PS.
I excelled at that. I excelled at that.
Yeah, PS, Jenny has a big crush on Jimmy, but don't tell him.
Yes,
PS, I'm
exactly.
running away next week from home. You want to come with me? The juicy
Yeah.
stuff was always in the PS line. So
Yes.
I think it's as simple as it goes back to passing notes as kids, the good stuff's in the PS line. And so people's
Yeah.
eyes gravitate to the PS line. And that's my theory on why they do. But
Yeah.
it's like I
Oh
think
no, I think you're right. I think you're actually when I use a PS, I make my PS a different color than the body of my text, so it has another pop to it.
people know there's something juicy in the PS line. It's just
I
there's a
know.
mental trigger right there, you know.
Yeah. Hey. It was cited on my fourth grade. She passes notes too much.
Yeah.
My report. I got in trouble. All right, let's get into triggers. Let's jump
All
in,
right.
and I'd love to come back. I mean, I'd like to have just a side conversation. Maybe we can do a workshop on how do you create a core message, platform. That's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
We could do for the author community, um, Casey. All right, so let's, you had taking off on the highly effective for the highly effective people, you had seven highly effective mental triggers. And I think that that's, something to really think about. So where do we stop? Where do we start there?
I got seven of them here. I may look down on my little cheat sheet here, but the first one is what we call the help me build it trigger. And a word about mental triggers
Mm,
is they're typically not something, some of them are, but the ones I'm going over today are not things that you can necessarily look at the marketing copy and go, oh, there's a mental trigger. Mental triggers a lot of times operate in the background. It's
they're
almost like
subtle.
they're
Mm,
subtle, and it's almost like in a screenplay or a novel, the thematic elements or unspoken subtext, it kind of operates in the background. It has effect on people, but it's not something you can necessarily point at in the copy all of the time. So the first one is what I call the help me build it trigger. And what this is, and a lot of authors are good at this with their book cover. They'll design a few comps and they'll get on social media and say, I'm working on my book. Here's some book cover comps. And they have a little survey. Tell me which ones do you think are
hmm
the best?
hmm
And and the trigger here is that people are more likely to support something they feel they've had a hand in help developing.
They're a vested interest in it.
Yeah, and this is also big if you, let's say, do a nonfiction book and you're doing a program based on your book, like a seven module program or something like that. What you can do there is before you actually make the program, do a little live, we call it like a seed launch version of your program. And you get together a group of seven people and say, here's what I'm going to make with my program. Here's the main topics, but what do you guys want to know about these particular topics?
Mhm.
And get seven or eight people on a Zoom or 20 people if you can get them, 30 people, and just kind of give them, maybe charge a minimal fee to teach whatever your topic is or do it for free, whatever you want to do, but get people involved with it. And that'll help you get a better grasp of what people really want to know, but also get the main thing, but it gets people involved in your process and now they feel like they're part of it. They may tell other people. So you may start building some momentum before you publish your program or your book. But it's just a mental trigger. People tend to be more supportive of something that they feel they've had a hand in creating.
Mhm.
And so,
I like that a lot.
yeah,
And I had a situation where I was working on a book. Several of the, and I'm going to go back to you because you were working a lot in the healthcare field. I spent 20 years in the healthcare field too, by the way, speaking in every state, 17 countries. I was all over the place. And I was writing almost exclusively for healthcare, dealing with toxicity in their workplaces. And that several of from the executive line were influencing me for a book that really dealt with, I was watching some of the union related stuff going on, dealing with that, and I thought, well, maybe maybe I should take a look at this. And I really had moved it along. I was writing the book, I had done the survey, I was ready to do pre-sales, I had programs designed really to go to the executive side. But I forgot something that was really important. My fan base, even though they brought me, the execs brought me in all the time, was really the worker bees, was really all the staff related. And if I really did the book the way the surveys had come out, and I had done massive interviews for this book, Casey, um, would crush them. And I aborted it. I aborted the entire project because my fan base, my support base that had bought hundreds of thousands of my books would not be there. And that was like, a really awakening where I was triggered saying, okay, I can see these problems going over here. The nurse execs were saying, here's what's going on here on that. So that intrigued me. They triggered my thing, I want to know more, kind of thing. And then as I got into it, I could really support that, but I couldn't leave my others behind on it. And it was a tough decision, but once I got there, it was very easy to do the walk away.
Yeah. Getting people involved, yeah, is
Yeah.
such.
And I did the ask, and I actually asked an audience at at a big nursing conference. And that's when I thought, okay, we're done. We're done.
And another trigger that ties into that, I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit. I'm going to
Okay.
go a little bit out of order here, is
Right.
the unity trigger.
Mm,
The unity trigger is, and this one is really important these days, I think. And that is, in the past, we've had experts, highly credentialed experts, who stand on top of the mountain and kind of speak down to their audience, a little bit.
mhm. I've been there many times. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm,
that now is really, what's more in vogue now. I don't, vogue's probably not the right word, but you
mhm.
you want to, a little saying is to help you if you're climbing a mountain, you only need to be 5 feet ahead of somebody to reach back and help them up the mountain. So
Yes.
it's a little less of speaking down, the expert speaking down the mountain to the crowd, and it's more like I'm walking up the mountain with you. Instead of I'm the expert because I've walked in your shoes, these days
Mhm.
it's a little more I'm walking right beside you. So the more you can do to create a sense of unity between you and your audience, the better. That's something people really respond to. There's very few guru types now, maybe Tony Robbins and a few others who can still, hey, I'm on the mountain, I'm the expert. But more
I
and more,
know.
more and more people, especially, there's definitely a big movement these days of people in their 50s who are leaving, being booted out of the corporate workspace or laid off or whatever, who want to start that second act in their life. And they have
Mhm.
a lot of wisdom to share.
Hmm.
That little imposter syndrome of, gee, am I expert enough? And it's like, yes, you are expert enough. You have lots of wisdom to share, but the way to share it is, you're walking alongside your audience. So you want to create a sense of unity between you and your audience. So instead
Mhm.
of thinking I need to be so far ahead of my audience, no, you only need to be 5 feet further up the mountain to reach back and help somebody. So that's just another thing you can do with your copy is to create a sense of I'm walking right beside you. I'm right there with you. I'm still figuring it out as I go, and I'm going to tell you about my mistakes as I go, where I slip up. I'm going to tell you about my wins, but I'm going to tell you about my losses. And create a sense that you're, tied to your audience.
I think that when I think back to all the media that I have done over the years with my books, I've done over 1,500 interviews. from the big boys to, the big girls of Oprah to, the local news. And that when I was one of my big books dealt with the toxic workplace, why women undermined other women. And they always wanted to know, and this really does tie in with the unity. How did you get out of this mess? You have this massive failure going on. You're losing everything on that. How did you recover? How did you build it up? And when you share those failures and the hurt sometimes, because sometimes it's deep, when you share those things, people can feel like, God, there's a little hope for me. She's been there, she's done that, on that. So I think sharing, these people who put out that everything is always just hunky dory.
Yeah,
Every,
exactly.
I have the perfect life. What BS? It's
Yeah,
just BS. And you really learn from really the trash and the garbage that we all go through. And you mentioned like the 50 mark. When I think of the people that I work with as a book shepherd, and all that, rarely is anyone under 50.
yeah,
One of my amusements, and button pushers is I see these life coaches who are like 25 years old.
yeah,
Really? What do you know, darling?
yeah. They should be coaching maybe teenagers, but
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you should take a course, right? But I think that unity trigger, what you're talking about, is that, and I'm gonna, I wrote down, you know, maybe you're 5 feet ahead, but this is what I've learned. This is what got me through this. So this might be your bridge to get through your next step, whatever that is. So I like it.
cool. And that kind of ties into another one that gets underutilized a lot, and that's reciprocity trigger. The
Mm-hmm.
reciprocity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And because what I've ran into a lot when let's say an author or a coach is going to give a free webinar or a free training, and at the end of it, they're going to pitch their
Stuff.
program book. They're going to pitch their stuff. One thing they'll say to me is, if I give away too much information, they have no need to buy from me. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
give away the farm. And I always tell them, no, the most successful
Mm-hmm.
coaches I've worked with, they have just the opposite thought is they do over the top
Mm-hmm.
value. They over deliver every time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're free trainings. In fact, a lot of the coaches who done
I
real
do.
they they'll say my best training is this program you can buy. The second best training I do is the free training I do to try to get you to buy my program. And so the thought is I'm going to give over the top value. I'm going to give, give, give. And that creates a sense in people of this person is just going so over the top of the value. They're providing me with so much. I kind of feel obligated to buy, and maybe obligated is not the right word, but you just like have a feeling of this person is really put out and, I want to support them. They're
Mm-hmm.
going all out to give me a lot of good information. They're
Mm-hmm.
not holding back. They're not playing the game of here's what you need, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You got to buy the program. They just give value and they'll teach. They think, okay, my free training is going to be my second best training that I do.
Mm-hmm.
My paid
Mm-hmm.
training is where all the juice is at. But so
Mm-hmm.
if you're gonna use the mental trigger of reciprocity, just think
I
over
love it.
the
Yep.
top.
Yeah, well, Casey, you and I have been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, like decades. And that, I had someone show up at I do, for those of you who've been with me a long time, I'm based in Colorado. So is Casey, by the way.
Yeah,
And that I do once a month, a Saturday kind of pick my brain. And sometimes it's in my home and sometimes it's just Zoom. And I always do it, on well, we switched it over to the first Saturday of the month. But I had someone show up in the in-person one who said, I heard you do a program 8 years ago. You know, you know, and you gave me this advice, you went through this, this, and this, and I've been chewing on it all this time, and now I've come back to get
Yep.
it going. And I think that those that when you give out, I've always given and been over generous with that. Sometimes I have to be careful because I'll just say, "What were you thinking? This this book looks like shit. Where did you get this cover idea?" And that now, I have to be careful because I said, "Well, do you want me to listen, or would you like my opinion?" Okay, so sometimes I have to do that because I'm inclined to just jump in.
Another one, and this is one you're an expert at, Judith, by far, is
Hmm.
the community mentor.
Yeah, yeah.
People, this goes back to when we were little kids on the playground. The sense of belonging. We need a sense of belonging. Nobody wanted to be the kid walking
Hmm.
around on the playground by themselves. You wanted to have your homies, your friends that you hung out with, your group. You wanted to belong to a group. And the most successful coaches I've worked with, they provided good information, but their superpower was they built strong communities. Um, I've worked with this guy, Evan Carmichael. He had a great saying, people crave community. What they really, and
They do.
that's another reason when you're giving, let's say, a free talk, give over the top value, the reciprocity trigger kicks in. But if you tell people, we've got, even if it's a Facebook group or a group on Mighty Networks or Saturday salons, or you've got a group where people can go and feel a sense of belonging, that they're part of a group.
Hanging out. It's a hangout.
I was surprised I moved to Fruta, and I thought, God, I'm probably the only writer in Fruta or Grand Junction. And what I found out, it's called the West Slope Writers Group. There is
Mhm.
a group and they have happy hours, they have open mic poetry readings, they have all kinds of little creative get together at the Art Center and a few places. I had no idea that was going to exist here. And I immediately joined because it was like, oh, I've got a group, I've got a crowd. So through your book, or your program, anything you can do to create community. Because there's this one, I forget the name of this one coach I worked with, but she had she again, her she does YouTube videos. When you buy her YouTube videos almost mirror what's in her paid program. There's
Mhm.
not much of a difference, but when you get her paid program, you become part of her community and you can interact with everybody else in the community.
Mhm.
So everything you can do, if when you're talking about your book or your program, if you start talking about a community you've created that everybody can join, that is a
Mhm.
strong mental trigger because we all want to go to a place where everybody knows our name. We all
Absolutely. The
want to
cheers,
cheer. We
the
all
cheers factor.
the cheers factor. So anything you can do to create a cheers factor
Mhm.
is a very strong mental trigger because a lot of people don't realize it, but they crave that community almost more than the information.
Mhm. I just switched some healthcare providers because I just felt distancing was coming in. It was too sterile in so many ways. And the new group I am with, it's like the cheers.
Yeah,
I walk in, and everybody knows I'm there. It's like you're greeted, you're welcomed, you feel, if, whether you're having in there with a real problem or just, that's just a standard checkup, whatever it is, that it's kind of home.
yeah. There's other people like me. You think it's just kind of like the nerd. These days it's like the nerdy gamer. You know,
Yeah.
they're kind of weird and nerdy, or they think they are. Am I only person like this? And that's the beauty of it's easier to create, it's easier now than ever to create a community. I think there's another one I found,
Mhm.
School, Skool is, I was part of some a summit. I was joined a summit. It was an AI summit a couple of
Uh-huh.
months ago. And part of, paying the $47 for the summit was you're part of this community on School, which is another community platform. Well, there's a bunch of people in there trading ideas about AI and, what can we do here? What do you know about this? What do you know about that? And people absolutely love that. So when you can create a strong sense of community, the better.
And when you go into those and you pick up a couple of good ideas,
Yeah.
that it could be it reinforces what you're thinking, or it's like brings in new information and ahas. It's that's a gold mine. To me, that's a gold mine to have. So you're right. I'm a big believer in community. Okay, so we got a couple other triggers that you have on your time. I am watching our time here, so
Yeah.
I'm thinking in about 14 minutes here. That let's jump over to let's think about the event base because that does tie in with this community
Yes.
uh, a little bit. So if we could kind of let's kiss on that because I think it also one of the great things that I think for you and I and what we opt where I came from only exclusive New York publishing. I am a recovered New York publishing snob that thought the only legitimate authors were with New York, and that's just such nonsense. But that you have the ability to not only you mentioned earlier when we started about launching, book launches.
Yeah.
And I think one of the beauties of this independent publishing drive, where, my God, Casey, last year, 4 million books were published, 4 million books, that you can relaunch a book. And I know with my private coaching group I do on Friday mornings at 7 a.m., some are in their robes from on the West Coast, that, that we literally do, like our Amazon bestsellers. And I talked to the group and I'll be reinforcing it this Friday that you should be doing a bestseller drive every
Mhm.
year on your book to regoose it, to relaunch it, to rebirth it, to reintroduce it, to start noise going again on that. And events,
Events,
bestseller. Mhm.
the comparison we make a lot is think about Apple, think about Hollywood movies. You know,
Mm,
when, like right now, the film Disclosure will be coming out, I think, in June. Spielberg's new.
yes, I've been watching the ads.
The ads, the trailers, the updated trailers, the buzz, the talk. Another term for it is shot across the bow, which is it could all start with, "Hey, I've got something really cool coming in a few months." It's like the old billboards, the teaser ads, where it would be a black, and you're from LA, so you saw a bunch of these on Sunset Boulevard and everything. It'd be a big black billboard. And it's that way for like 3 weeks, and you go, "There's black billboard." Then all of a sudden, they tear a strip off the top of the billboard, and it says it's coming in July, and that's all it says. The rest of the billboard is black.
What's coming? Yeah.
What's coming? And then 2 weeks later, there's another strip torn off, and it says it's unlike anything we've done before. And it's an old school teaser campaign. Build up, your book launch or any of just think of how does Hollywood build things up? How does Apple before when they Steve Jobs was a master at the
Oh
build
yeah, he was.
the build up to his big reveal and of a new product or something. He started doing it with the Mac before he got to iPhones and all that. But you can have a slow build and let people know just something is coming. I've got something really cool coming soon. And there's going to be people who really, before you do the big reveal, are ready to give you, here's my credit card. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
So don't be shy about making the launch or relaunch, a big event. And the way you launch a big event is you don't let people know 3 days before. you do a slow buildup, do, what we always used to call a teaser campaign, starting with that shot across the bow. Hey, something really cool is coming. And have fun with that. And that's a strong mental trigger with your crowd because everybody wants to know what's behind the curtain. It goes back to the old carnival barker, step inside to see whatever, that was,
I love it, actually. While you're saying that, I am now drawing little things because I have a new book coming. And I have never used a blank deal. I am going to now, thank you, Casey Demchak. I'm going to do that, you know, and then do a nut. It's coming in July,
well,
and
it was like a really big one too, going back to when I was a little boy. I remember the Beatles' White Album.
yeah.
Was they put the word out that the cover was kind of obscene or something, and they painted over it. And there were people who would hold the album cover over steam, trying to see what was underneath the white. And I think it was all made up, but it's
Mhm.
just something you can do to create, and
It's
it's
hy- it's hype. It's a hype, but
in anticipation. It ties into the other mental trigger of creating anticipation for something.
Mhm,
People,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah, I love it. Right, so we're down to like 5 minutes, Casey. So let's kiss on. We have two more of your seven. We have the emotional trigger and then the urgency, the scarcity trigger. Which should we
yeah.
hit on first?
Well, let's make sure we cover urgency and scarcity. Um,
Okay, here we go.
People like things they can't have. You know,
Absolutely.
a little boy moves into a neighborhood with his mom. His mom says, "Whatever you do, don't go down to the swamp." Well, 20 minutes
Well,
later,
I want to go to that swamp.
20 minutes later, the little boy is being chased away from the swamp by an alligator. You know, it's people want what they don't have. So create, if it,
Limited time, you
limited
know.
time offers, and a lot of people are afraid to do this, or, like it's available. We're going to close cart on Friday and then it won't be available anymore. Or I've got some great bonuses, but after Friday, you can still get the book, but not the bonuses.
Yeah.
Or when you do your launch, say, I'm really pushing my launch this week, 5 days only. And today, if you order today, Monday, you're going to get this particular bonus, but you can't get it if you order tomorrow. Create a fast action bonus. So create scarcity and urgency. Like you can't have it, and a lot of people are hesitant to do that, but I don't want to do
Oh
that.
no, I like it.
But
I do it.
it works.
Yeah,
It
it does.
works. It's the old thing of people want something that they can't have.
Mm. I actually just recently did that to to support a book, support one of my books. If you buy either book one or book two, I will give you a free book during my birthday month. And I did that. And I gave you a choice of two books. It worked great.
Yeah.
And we sent it out to our mailing, just said, I'm going to be here. These are the stores I'm going to be in these days. Come and get your free books. So, and we worked it with the bookstores, Casey. I had a special bag that I put the free books in so that they could put their book in there and the registered didn't charge them. And we did that all pre ahead of time.
It works.
It absolutely does work. Okay. So last but not least, let's see, how about that emotional? And of course, I think that's where it all starts with emotion. I hate to say this.
Yeah. I'm getting a 7-second warning. Do I have to go real quick, or are we okay? Or
No, that means 7 minutes. Oh, yes, it is. Casey, what are you doing? Oh, we just saw it. Yeah. All right. So maybe we just come back and we can kiss on it when we do our show too. How's that?
that would be great.
All right. So Casey, thank you so much for being with us. Essential elements, everybody. Casey Demchak, and it's Chak, by the way. Casey KSEY DEMCHAK.com. Find him. We'll be back with him for another show.